today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
I didn't want to be miserable anymore. So I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing isn't working. So how can I change, not me, but how can I change my mindset? And I figured if I do everything that scares me, something is going to change.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. Did you know that Beyond 6 Seconds has a free newsletter? This newsletter will give you exclusive insights, behind the scenes, and bonus information about this podcast. Plus, as a special thank you for signing up, you'll get a copy of my free checklist for getting started with podcasting. It's easy to sign up. Just go to my website, www.beyond6seconds.com, and click on Sign Up for my free newsletter. Or you can go to the show notes of this episode and find the sign-up link for the newsletter there. And now, on to today's episode. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Sydney Nanberg. Sydney is an anti-bullying activist on a mission to prevent suicides. She defied the expectations of society by dropping out of college to create her own path in life and built a 6-figure marketing agency when she was 20 years old. Now Sydney teaches tools to help others live fulfilling lives on the topics of self-care, the power of mindset, and entrepreneurship. Sydney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I'm so excited to be here. I love your podcast. I'm so glad that we were able to connect.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show and really excited to connect with another fellow podcaster and especially someone who has such an amazing story like you do. I'd love to learn more about that big decision point that you had. I guess it was about 5 years ago now when you decided to make a big decision to follow your own path in life and kind of break from what society had expected you to follow. Tell me more about that. Like, what was going on at that time and what caused you to make that change at that point?
Yeah, so I was at the University of Arizona. I was a sophomore in college and I wasn't happy. And I remember I was in a class, it was about plants and we all, for some reason, failed this test or whatever, everyone in the class. And the professor gave this little speech where he said that because everybody failed it, you should really consider, basically your future. Like, maybe you shouldn't be in college right now and maybe this isn't for you. And just because we failed a test about plants, and it was the beginning of the year. And so everybody in the class was like, oh my God, how could the professor say that? And I was inspired. I was like, you know what? Maybe it's okay that my path is not the same as everyone else's. And I don't usually talk about that part that much, except I talked about it a little bit on an episode of my podcast and people were interested in it. So that's why I'm sharing it. So I went up to the teacher after class and I thanked him. And I was like, thank you so much. You really encouraged me. And I'm going to drop out of your class right now. And I think I'm going to drop out of school as well.
Wow.
And I had to have papers signed to drop out of his class. And I think he was he didn't really say much. I think he was in shock. And so when I was leaving class, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? My parents are going to kill me. I didn't drop out of school yet. Mm-hmm. So I was walking back from class and I wasn't happy. And I was like, I'm going to take this as a sign and I'm going to follow my gut feeling. And so I asked myself if I could do anything in the world right now, what would it be? And I gave myself 3 seconds to answer the question because if you give yourself longer, then it's no longer following your gut feeling.
Right.
So my initial gut feeling was to move to Miami Beach. And I'm from Chicago originally. I was in Arizona for school. I have family in Florida, but not in Miami. Mm-hmm. But Florida was always my happy place. So I think that's probably where it came from. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, move to Miami Beach. I wanted to somehow own my own business. I was 19 at the time. And I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to create something. I wanted to live in the warm weather. It really started off that simple. So what I realized was, okay, it's going to be hard to get a job initially. I don't even have an idea for a business. And how am I going to do this without a college degree? So I told my parents what I wanted to do, and they were very supportive. I didn't tell anybody else what I was doing, like my friends or my roommates. I dropped out of school, but I stayed in Arizona and I took courses and classes and things that would challenge me. And I got a job in sales to become really good at sales. I took public speaking to improve my speaking skills. I took comedy improv classes to really do something outside of my comfort zone and be quick on my feet. I took leadership classes, and I spent a lot of time just working on my habits and personal development and growth. And because of that, I had an idea, and I was like, I want to do real estate. So I left school and I moved to Miami after a few months of doing those classes and all of that. I got my real estate license. I moved to Miami by myself. I did not live with family because I do have family in Florida, but not in Miami.
Right.
So I moved to Miami by myself. I started doing real estate. Within my first few months of doing real estate, I ended up selling about $5 million worth of real estate without knowing anyone. And I didn't know anything about real estate. I just knew do the opposite of what everyone's doing because there's so much competition. Everybody's trained the same way. And so that's what I did. And I realized I don't like real estate. I like marketing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get a job maybe for a real estate broker. Maybe it was me. Maybe I needed to learn more. And so I figured if I did that, maybe I would like the whole thing. So there was a company that was looking for a marketing director. I did not go to school for marketing, but I'm almost 26, so it's my generation and I could figure things out. I can Google anything. I went in, I applied for this job for the marketing director of like some luxury brokerage in Miami. And I was prepared and I did a lot of research and I got the job. I wasn't really paid a lot. And I noticed that people were asking me to do their marketing and I started a marketing agency. And I've been doing that ever since. And I still live in Miami and I met my boyfriend here. We've been together for 5 years now, and that's where I'm at. And I just kept taking one step at a time. So that's kind of my journey.
Wow. That's such an explosive and quick change. And, I think it's something that Malcolm Gladwell's written about is that a lot of those big decisions we make in our lives are made in an instant or in a blink. And it sounds like, certainly there was, I'm sure, quite a lot leading up to the point where you were in the class and the professor gave that famous piece of advice, inspiration, or, however you view it. And
I found it inspirational. I liked it.
Which is, and it's incredible because once in a while you have someone as a boss or a teacher or some authority figure who says something about your ability. And so often it sticks with us, but in a negative way. But I think it's amazing that, you were in a place at that time that it really freed you. And it said like, oh, okay, now it's like, this is the impetus for me to finally make this change. So, and I'm sure that certainly while the actual point of change was quick, I'd imagine that there was quite a lot leading up to that. And I know you mentioned that you were in college at the time and that you were unhappy. So could you take me to what the situation was like right before that? Like what had you been through and what was leading up to this change?
When I tell people, that story that I just said, like that is what happened. But behind the scenes and what I went through to get to that point was a lot more than just a success story. It's not a success story. I'm still on my journey. In my opinion, that's how I see it. But there was a lot going on at the time. And leading up to that, even in that, I just wasn't happy at school. I made some really amazing friends who I'm still friends with today, but I had a lot of anxiety. I was depressed all the time. I felt very out of place. I don't know why. I was doing what everyone was doing, but for some reason, being in school, I just didn't feel like it was my path. So I was just miserable. And like when I started making the change too, just so everyone listening knows, it's not like I got a job. Great. I'm signing up for all of these classes. Great. There were days where I didn't show up to public speaking. There were days that I didn't go to the comedy improv class, or I took a cab to go there and asked the cab driver to bring me back to my apartment because I was terrified. There were times when with the job in sales that I screwed up and I got nervous. I mean, it was really hard, but leading up to all of that, it's like I kind of had done what everybody told me I should be doing my entire life. I was bullied growing up really badly. So I dealt with a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, suicidal thoughts, things like that. And I was always very quiet, very shy. I'm still kind of quiet unless I'm around my friends, which is crazy because I have a podcast, but I'm pretty quiet in real life. I always knew that I needed to do something different, that like the path that everybody is told to take, I knew it wasn't for me, but I kind of went along with it. And I think I hit that breaking point once I was on my own in school, away, living on my own, where I had time to think to myself. And I realized, okay, I'm 19 years old, I can make a choice. I can either do something about the situation or continue doing what makes me feel miserable. And I hit a point where I was like, I'm not going to feel miserable anymore. And so leading up to that was just a lot of me just feeling like silenced my whole life and a lot of anxiety, like I said, and a lot of depression, a lot of feeling like I didn't fit in and all of that. And I think when I chose to see that moment when I failed that test in a class about plants, I saw it as a sign that I don't have to take this path, because I saw in that room that everybody was just like disappointed because of a grade, because of a letter. And the fact that I didn't feel that showed me that maybe there's more to life. Maybe I don't have to be like everybody else. And then I started researching and reading about successful people in life and happiness, and learning about that, and people who tend to follow their gut feeling, and et cetera. And yeah, that's when I had all of those realizations. But before that, that's what kind of led to that. So that was like that breaking point where I was like, I'm going with it. I need a change. I can't live feeling like this anymore. And so there was a lot of things that built up, and it was a lot of hard work. And it's still a lot of hard work to this day. I mean, now I own a business. I mean, and I have a podcast. I have more responsibilities. It's always a lot of hard work. So it's easy just to tell, I like how you asked what happened leading up to it, because a lot of people just like to tell the good parts. But the reality is that it takes a lot of hard work to get to the good parts. I mean, it's not easy. I'm very relentless, and I'm very driven by happiness. That's really what I'm after. And that's what I'm trying to help other people do as well.
Oh,
I hope that answered the question. That was like a very long explanation.
It does. And there's just so many amazing points that you've made and things that I want to revisit, because it sounds like it's such a change, not just a change of I'm leaving school and I'm doing something else, but also a change.
Right.
It sounds like potentially in your own perspective and your own thoughts about how you wanted to live your life and how you wanted to feel. Because, you mentioned struggling with anxiety, with being bullied throughout your life. And I certainly would imagine that puts you in a very difficult situation to deal with, and very challenging and negative. So to make that change and that decision to say like, okay, I'm going to focus differently. I'm going to make the decision to pursue health and happiness and get in touch with my true talents and build my own path is really amazing. But it sounds like also you have in you the drive and persistence to carry you through the really difficult times and find where you feel you're supposed to be.
Sometimes I feel like you have to hit that point. Anyone can tell you can listen to a podcast, read a blog, or talk to friends, and they can say, oh, all you have to do is just this or that. But really, I believe, because it's my experience, that you kind of have to hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm now ready to make this change. I can do it. And, part of my mission is to help people realize that. But it took that moment for me to realize like, okay, my life doesn't have to be miserable. I still deal with anxiety. I still deal with all of those things, but I had to learn how to improve myself, my habits, my mindset, and everything. And I was ready for that change.
Wow. It's such a lot to really move through, because you mentioned having anxiety, but it's not, not to make light of it at all. It's not just like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. You had severe anxiety. You were having at one point daily panic attacks, suicidal thoughts and feelings, as you mentioned, and even I think an eating disorder. That's a lot. So that is incredible. How did you, I don't want to say take control, or really start taking stock of your mental health and moving through and finding a better mental wellness for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough, because to be completely honest with you, I still have panic attacks all the time, and they're very severe. And I know everybody, to say, oh, I have anxiety, it can mean a million things, but just to tell you what my panic attacks are like, sometimes it happens out of nowhere, usually when I'm under a lot of stress, or usually with anxiety, there's something going on, at least for me. And what happens is, I could be laying in bed, having a great day or a great night if I'm laying in bed or whatever. And, all of a sudden I'll feel like everything's kind of blurry, and my throat feels like it's closing, and I can't breathe, and I can't think straight. And it's very scary. It's scary. And I've dealt with that since I was younger. So just because, I worked on myself doesn't mean that it just goes away. Or the eating disorder growing up, I used to starve myself, or I would binge eat, or I would like chew food and spit it out. And I think it's important to be very open about this, because there's so many people out there who do suffer with this. And it's something that we have to deal with. So to learn how to cope with it, I started focusing on my health and what I wanted in life. I started, like I said, improving my habits, meaning I put better routines in place. I took time for myself. I started journaling. I started seeing a therapist, which was great. And although I still deal with these things, not the eating disorder really, but the anxiety today, it's not as severe, and I have coping mechanisms. And, I'm really into meditation, and I have tools, I guess you could say, that I could use that I've learned. And so I just knew that I had to get through it. And so I took the first step of doing whatever I had to do. And I just kind of built from there. When I guess I'm referring to routines, but I kind of built up my routines and my mental strength. I mean, I had zero confidence. I mean, I strongly disliked myself, obviously, after I just felt like I was worthless. And so to go from that to where I am now happened, I think, because I was able to leave home and be out of my environment and be surrounded by amazing friends. And it was like a fresh start. And it got me thinking about what I really wanted in life. And I think that's what kind of also inspired me to make that change. And also once I started to realize that, okay, I want to make this change, I had to figure out what the root of the issue was, right? So if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, suicidal thoughts and eating disorder, it's coming from somewhere, right? So I had to figure out, once I was able to realize, okay, I want to make this change. I don't want to be miserable. And through therapy and through these other coping mechanisms, I was able to figure out what the deeper rooted issue was. And then I was able to work on it and improve. And it's a process, and it's something that I work on every single day, but it's possible to work through, and you just need to have the right tools and find different things that work for you. Meditation doesn't work for everyone. Journaling doesn't work for everyone. I was so against it for so many years. I mean, maybe it's listening to the sound of the ocean. I have this whole thing where I'm like, I like to turn my bedroom and my bathroom into like a spa. So I'll put like essential oils, and I have the Himalayan salt lamp, and I will put the sound of the rain on, or like spa music, and I'll take a warm steam shower, and I'll get out and I'll put a face mask on. Like, I have very specific things that I will do if I feel anxiety coming on, or just to start and end my day to set myself up for success. So it's taken a really long time for me to figure these things out and work through these deeper rooted issues and figure out which coping mechanisms work. It took a lot, but that's kind of what the process looked like. But it was really, really difficult. Like, I remember there was a day, I was on this path to like figuring out, okay, how am I going to get to Miami? And I was already in all of these classes, and I had my job, and I had a moment, I remember, where I was just out of my routine. And I remember being in my apartment, and my room, I'm very organized. My room was a mess. It kind of like went back to how I used to feel. I had all of those horrible thoughts going through my mind. It was like I hit a roadblock. And I remember allowing myself a certain amount of time. I know this is a thing that people do, but I didn't know that at the time. I allowed myself a certain amount of time to feel bad. And at that time I said, okay, Sydney, it's time to get up. Got up, cleaned up my room, went for a run. I love to run. I'm a big runner. So I went for a run, and in that moment, I remember, oh my God, like allowing myself that time and forcing myself after that time to get up and do something to make myself feel better actually made me feel better. And that was a game changer too. So I try to become very self-aware, and there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I could talk about it for a long time to try and help people, but that was my experience. And those are some of the things that I did.
Wow. And I think it's really important. The point that you made is important, that it is difficult, it's complicated, and it takes time. And it's really incredible how you were able to build up that self-awareness and understand the types of tools and techniques and different things that were helpful for you. So in terms of how you discovered that, was it a lot of trial and error, or did it kind of come from therapy, or how did you find out what worked for you?
Oh, that's a good question. When I first went to school, my sophomore year, when I moved back in Tucson, I moved there that day. This is kind of how it all happened. I moved there that day, and the next day I got on a plane and I went home to Chicago. And I don't talk about this that often. And I just had a breakdown, because at that point too, I felt I was miserable. I didn't want to be in school. And I got help, and I went home and I took a break. I was still enrolled in school. I mean, I was still going to school, but I came home for about 3 weeks. It could have been a month. I can't even remember. and I got help, and I got some ideas from getting help. And that's when I started journaling. And that's when I started, meditating. That's when I started really taking care of my health. That's when I started working through some of these issues. I got to a point where I was like, I need help. When I went back to school, I was still unhappy. I hadn't hit that point yet where I was like, okay, I'm dropping out, but I just was in a bad place. So I guess we're backing it up a little bit further. But that's when I started to learn about some of these tools. And from then on, I just read a lot. I started reading a lot about, mental health, about self-improvement, personal development. And I just tried different things. And one thing, besides journaling and meditation, I've always been into fitness, but one of the first things I tried was also like creating, like I said, a couple times better habits and routines. So, when I went back to school, I put really strict routines in place. Like I would have a to-do list, and even the smallest things like making my bed or do it, whatever it is I had to do. Like I had to check things off the to-do list. And from there, I think ideas and different things just started coming to me, and little things that made me feel better, I paid attention to. And through reading and therapy and just understanding myself, that's how I figured it out, I think. And I'm still figuring it out. I mean, I'm still coming across different things that work for me, like that whole little spa vibe thing that I do now. That's within the last 2 years. I mean, I am always trying to discover new things and figure out new ways to cope, because I want to be the best version of myself, and I want to feel better, and I want to feel happy, and I want to feel like I have the tools in place. But I think it was a lot of trial and error and also help. And then me taking the initiative to be like, okay, I want to feel better, and then researching it, and then just trying anything and everything.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really good, again, going back to mindset, to have kind of like a learning mindset. It's like trying out different things. I may discover new things in the future that will help. And then having that commitment to, as you said, to feeling better and finding your own happiness and your own path in life.
Yeah. And a lot of times when people don't feel happy, they don't want to do anything about it. Yeah. So that's why I always say, like, I hope that like whatever I share will inspire people, like how I got, maybe in a different way, but like how I got inspired to make a change. Because for many years I was so unhappy, which this is very common, but I was so unhappy that I didn't feel that I deserved anything better. I didn't want to, like I said, I felt worthless. I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to do anything for myself. I just didn't feel like it. And there's other people out there that I'm sure are listening to this and who have felt like that before also. And it's not a good place to be in. So, once you realize, okay, I don't have to be miserable, and I need to find my inspiration, I need to follow my gut feeling, I do deserve happiness, then things start kind of moving. It takes hard work, but things start moving. Yeah, in my opinion.
True. It's so easy to get stuck. And I think so many of us get stuck at certain points in our lives for a whole variety of reasons.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Getting stuck is part of life. We all get stuck. We all hit obstacles and roadblocks, and it's all how we choose to cope with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like that self-awareness that you were talking about, in order to understand what worked for you and what made you happy and what made you feel well and positive. Sounds like that also extended to what you wanted to do in terms of building new skills for your life. Because when you were telling your story, you talked about, going into real estate and doing public speaking and comedy, improv, and working with sales. So did you always kind of have in the back of your head, like, I really wanted to try these things? Or were those things that you discovered after you made the decision to leave that class and totally change your life?
Okay. So like I said, like, I didn't want to be miserable anymore. So I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing isn't working. So how can I change, not me, but how can I change my mindset? And I figured if I do everything that scares me, something is going to change. I'm either going to get inspired, I'm going to come up with an idea, I'm going to improve as a person, I'm going to be out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to grow. So I literally wrote down a list of the things that scared me, and I did them. So when I was in college, I worked in a clothing boutique. It was really cute. I used to shop there all the time, and then I wanted to get a job there. My biggest fear, that I did not ever want to work in a boutique, because I would have to talk to people. I would have to see people. Like, I was so self-conscious. I was just like, I don't know if I could do this. So I did it. I was public speaking. I mean, that kind of goes along with that. Like, I could never get up in front of like, when I was growing up, I used to like have my mom call in, or I'd go up to the teacher to get out of any presentations I had to do. I couldn't even do them. Improv. okay, that's just like another level of like terrifying for me. Leadership classes, I'd never done it before. So I was like, well, I don't want to take a class about plants. I respect people who really enjoy that, but I don't. I like plants. I think they're very pretty. I did not want to learn about it. So I wanted to learn about leadership. Like clearly I'm this quiet person who I see myself very differently than who I could be. And so I tried to envision the person I wanted to be, and I wanted to be a leader. So I did those things, and I don't know where I came up with that idea, but I recommend that to anyone. If you want to improve your habits, write a list of everything that scares you and do it. Everybody says, oh, do what scares you. But the point of it is that you grow, you learn, you're out of your comfort zone. If you are doing the same things within your comfort zone every day, you are not going to change. You're not going to get closer to what you want in life. And if you're miserable, if you're not, for me, I use the word miserable. If you're unhappy, if you're sad, if you're anxious, whatever, and you don't want to be, do the opposite of what you're doing. And that's just what I did and why I did it.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah, like you said, everyone says like, do one thing a day that scares you and do the thing that scares them. Like, but really taking that to heart, because you're right. That's really the points where you put yourself in situations, or you're in situations where you're unsure, you're uncomfortable, you're scared. That's really where you learn. And honestly, it almost doesn't even matter how you react as long as you engage with the situation. And, whether you succeed at the particular task you're trying at, or you don't succeed, but then you still learn like what you could do better or how you could apply it to something else. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. And I think a lot of people who may already be feeling kind of miserable are like, well, I already feel uncomfortable all the time and scared. I don't want to make myself more uncomfortable and scared. But you're right. That is really where learning takes place, is when you're in those situations. Oh,
absolutely.
Great.
For anyone listening who might be feeling like what you just said, like already uncomfortable or scared, and they don't want to put themselves in that position. Well, if they don't put themselves and this was a different position. I wasn't taking comedy improv classes where everybody in the class is in the same position. I wasn't taking public speaking classes where everybody else is in the same position, unless there's those few in the room who love it. I did things that I had never done before. The times when I was really miserable and really felt worthless, I was in school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and I was sitting in a classroom and I kind of felt, left out and just, I was picked on. But, I made the choice to do things to improve myself. So it's not like I felt uncomfortable every day as it was, but I figured it's better to try something different and try something that's not in my comfort zone, that's going to continue to make me uncomfortable in a positive way. Because whether you fail or whether you succeed, you're still learning and you're still growing. And I don't necessarily do something every day that scares me, to be honest, even though I do talk about it a lot. Is when I can, I do. But I do believe, and I think Richard Branson said this, that when an opportunity presents itself and you don't know how to do it anyways, and then learn. And that's my mindset. And I saw that quote a long time ago. And I was like, you know what? Why not? And that's exactly what I did when I got the job as the marketing director. That's what I did when I started a marketing company. It kind of happened. I took it and I ran with it, and it scared me. And, I'm still always doing things outside of my comfort zone. I started teaching courses for marketing, which now I have a lot of 5.5 years of experience in marketing, and I know, and I've worked with a lot of people, but it's like, that's new to me. Teaching a course, like I never thought I would ever do that. How about a podcast? I never thought I'd have a podcast, or even speaking to you, Carolyn, right now. I never thought that I would be doing this ever. But I did what made me uncomfortable, and therefore I became comfortable and I became more confident in myself, even if I failed.
Yeah. And it really opens up new opportunities, like things you can't even see, because for all we know in the future, things could be coming to us that don't even exist yet, really. So, you have to, build up those skills and open yourself up to those opportunities where you could potentially fail, but you'll still, it sounds so cliched. It's like, well, you never fail, you learn. But really, you will use those skills, and there will be other opportunities to try again and get better and discover what you like. So it really is valuable.
Yeah, life is not black and white. I always say there's no such thing as failure, because failure to me, it's a good thing. And I saw a movie, it was a children's movie. I don't like flying, and I was on a plane, and my boyfriend's family's from Spain. So I have to keep myself preoccupied. So I have it planned out, all the movies I'm going to watch. So I was watching, I forget what the movie was called, but it was about this little kid and he liked to invent things
Mm-hmm.
and he kept failing and somehow he got to the future and it was his older self. It was like some crazy movie and the family said to him, like, he failed and he was like, I failed. And they were like, no, you won, you succeeded and let's go celebrate, because they were like, success is great, but failure is better because it helps you to actually reach true success. And I was like, good little lesson right there. It's true. So now I see failure as it sucks. That's the reality, but no one likes to fail, but it gets you one step closer to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And all of those skills and all of the different experiences that you went through where you embraced your own discomfort and fear to try the things that scared you. It sounds like that all led up and enabled you to start your own marketing company that reached six figures in it's like a relatively short amount of time, which is incredible. And I just love to learn more about, you started kind of telling the story of working in real estate and then becoming a director of marketing, but how did that come about where you made the decision to start your own marketing company and build it up?
Yeah, so I was working for this company and I worked really hard. I was learning as I went, but I also had like a good amount of knowledge in marketing. For me, I learned really quickly and I spent a lot of hours. I came in early, I left late, I worked when I was at home, and I just tried to learn as much as I could. I was promised, this is the truth, I was promised a raise a couple of times because they were paying me after taxes like $20,000 a year. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like a college education. I'll think of it that way. I needed to learn. And I was actually the marketing director of two companies and they were partner companies. So one was real estate and one was construction, but they were two different companies. And together they were paying me $20,000 to market for both. They expected me to do both. So it was a lot and I accepted it because it was a rare opportunity and it felt like it was probably the right decision for me. But after not being given the raise, even though I produced the results that they wanted, people kept asking me to do their marketing because they saw the results that I was producing for these companies. And they saw my work and they liked it. And I said, well, why can't I have my own marketing company? So I came up with a business plan and I just kind of went for it. I got an LLC. I got, in touch with my accountant. I got a business name. I got my website, my social media, my brochures, flyers. I knew what my services were. I figured out how I was going to take payment. I figured out who my target audience was. I just kind of did a lot of research and then I went for it. And I started. I remember the first day, I was like, this feels like the first day of school because this is like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I'm not employed by anybody but myself. Like, this is up to me. And within the first month, I already had clients and I just started building and building and building. And I built some really great relationships and I'm relentless, like I like to say. And that's exactly what I did. I just kept going and building and trying new things and taking new opportunities. And it is still a lot of hard work, but I've learned a lot. And even if I failed, at certain points in my business, I learned a lot from it that helped me to succeed in other areas or learn what I really want. My business has changed target audiences or my ideal client, what we offer, whatever. There's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things that we've tried and done and it's taught me how to succeed. And so, yeah, I did succeed in a fairly short amount of time, but I think a lot of that also came from being told my whole life that if I drop out of school, I'm never going. I had friends tell me once they found out I was going to drop out that I'm not going to succeed. I'm going to end up back in college. No one would ever use my company because I don't have a degree. So I think there was that fire in me that was I'm going to prove these people wrong. Now I do this for myself. I want to do what I enjoy. So now it's not that fire because of them. It's more okay, now this is my career. I'm just building and growing. But at first I also had the anxiety of, okay, I'm self-employed, so I need to figure this out. Otherwise I'm going to have to work for someone again. And I didn't like working for someone. I like the creativity. I like being able to travel when I want to travel, do what I want to do, when I want to do it, call the shots. But that's kind of how it all happened. But I don't want to not be transparent that there were a lot of obstacles along the way and it was very difficult. I want to be very real about that, but you just have to keep pushing. And that's what I did. I kept following my gut feeling. And I always say that so that's another thing that everyone says. It's just follow your gut feeling, but it's true. I literally just follow my gut feeling with everything that I do in life.
That's great. And it's so gratifying that the great work that you were doing was recognized, maybe not so much by the two companies that you were doing the work for, but it was good that you were able to, get that reinforcement and realize that there's a market for my skills here. And I don't, again, sort of like college, I don't have to be in this situation. Like, it's a great learning experience, but there are other things that I can do and other ways that I can succeed. So that is great.
Absolutely.
Do you still have the marketing company now? Or are you still running it?
Yeah, I still have my marketing company. It's my full-time career. We're coming out with some pretty cool things. So I do a lot of digital consulting for social media for brands and influencers and just all different kinds of companies. And I really like that. I like to speak with people and actually get to know them, understand them. I like the creative side of it. So I do a lot of that. And then I also have my podcast and blog to help people live a more fulfilling life and give them free mindset and self-care tips and share the lessons that I've learned in life in hopes that they can do the same with their life if they're not where they want to be. So I do both. It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Like 2 full-time careers, but I like it. I get to be creative and I like it a lot. Yeah.
That's cool. And what's the name of your company, your marketing company?
Oh, so this is a long story. So my company for the last 5 years until now, it was called The Marketing Firm. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that the name changed was because I had a website my first year and I used a web developer who was great. And I referred him to a bunch of people, a bunch of my clients. And then he got a little bit lazy and I said, hey, let's maybe pick it up a bit. Let's I tried to encourage him, but then it didn't work out. And he deleted my website and took the domain name. And so I haven't had a website for 4 years. So I've built my company organically, it's really referral. I also have I have a Facebook group that I started a year ago, but I do a lot of email marketing and stuff. Everything is by The Marketing Firm. When you speak to me, I tell you it's The Marketing Firm. But recently I decided that we're going to change the name so that we can get a new website up and all the social media going. And I just need everything to be organized. So now it's called Digital Maverick. Oh, I really love the name The Marketing Firm, but it's Digital Maverick.
But if people are interested in learning more about your marketing firm and the work you do, they can just reach out to you. Probably directly is the easiest way and then find out. Is that usually how your clients find you?
Yeah. So reach out to me directly, send me an email, or you can go to mydigitalmaverick.com, or you can find me on social media and send me a message. But yeah, that's usually the easiest way. People can reach out to me. I love to actually speak to people, build relationships. Everything I do is very customized to the person. I kind of have that old school type of business. I grew up in a family business and I liked how they built relationships. And I feel like today with the internet, you don't know who you're meeting. And so, yeah, anyone can just give me a call and I'll talk to them.
So cool. Okay. So we'll definitely put the information for Digital Maverick and the different social media accounts where we can reach out to you. And can we also find your podcast and the writing that you do in the same places, or where would people find that?
So my podcast and my blog is separate from My Digital Maverick, the marketing company. So my podcast is called She Did It. And then the blog is just sydneynanberg.com. And then my Instagram is sydneynanberg.com. And my Facebook is Sydney Nanberg. And my Twitter, everything is just, I think Twitter is Sydney_Nanberg. But they're all, it's all Sydney Nanberg. And so I keep that separate. That's my passion project.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so definitely we'll put those in the show notes. And before I let you go, I definitely want to touch on one more project that you also work on as in addition to all the other work and full-time gigs that you have going on, is that you also have an anti-bullying campaign to prevent suicides, which I imagine is quite close to your heart. And could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Okay, so my podcast and my blog started as an anti-bullying campaign to prevent suicides. And what I did was I started it off 2 years ago, maybe a little over 2 years ago, where I would interview people who had been bullied to share their story and how they overcame obstacles to find happiness in life. And what I realized was bullying comes in so many different forms. We sometimes bully ourselves. We can get bullied as kids. Adults can get bullied. And it's how do we get to the root of the issue to actually prevent this? And so how do you get into the minds of people who have been bullied and bullies? So my whole anti-bullying campaign actually turned into an entire self-care brand. It's personal brand, it's nonprofit, to help people with their own personal development. So I talk about self-care, mindset, and like I said, lessons that I've learned. And I share that to help inspire people and to help be really real and vulnerable. I'm so tired of seeing on social media false reality, and it's causing so many issues. I didn't have social media growing up. I might be a millennial, but I'm like an older millennial, I guess. I didn't have social media when I was younger, like these kids do today. So how can I really make an impact? To tell people to stop bullying isn't enough. They can watch the video, they can listen. It's not enough. How do I help people improve themselves and deal with the deeper rooted issues? Because when you deal with that, you then feel happier and fulfilled. And when you feel fulfilled, you treat people better, you treat yourself better. So that's kind of what my anti-bullying campaign turned into. I call it an anti-bullying campaign because I am an anti-bullying activist, of course, but that's where it stems from. So that's the story behind what I do and why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to help prevent suicides, to help people live a fulfilling life, but from a different angle. I'm all about doing things differently. And I just feel like, I think the anti-bullying campaigns that, we see are amazing. They're all trying to do something good, but it's not strong enough. It really is not strong enough. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And I've noticed I've had some good feedback, and if I can inspire one person, that would make me so happy. So that's kind of where my anti-bullying campaign is at.
I see how it all ties together, the whole, the focus on self-care and self-awareness and how to create our own wellness and happiness and health, and working against bullying and understanding, what's going on when you're being bullied and when people who are bullies, like how do we really get to the root of that, as you said?
Right. And, when I say self-care, I like to make it clear that self-care and wellness and like beauty products and like, you just take a steam shower, turn your room into a spa, like what I said. But it's more than that. That's just like when I'm having a panic attack, this is a coping mechanism and it works for me. Light some candles, great. It's helpful. It calms me down. But a big part of what I talk about is mindset more than self-care. And self-care comes in many forms. Self-care could be, creating routines, but mindset is a huge thing, because if you can improve how you think and how you see the world, you can improve how you see yourself. So I'm not just like one of those bloggers or podcasters that's talking about, I love this product, it's going to cure your problems. No, you got to work on yourself.
Yeah, we see that a lot on social media, but that's powerful. And I think self-care, sometimes that term gets a bad rap, but people think of it as like a luxury. They think of it as like a spa day or, like you said, a beauty product. But it's the very basic root of it. It is quite literally caring for yourself. That's everything from mindset to eating well to moving your body and exercise. All that stuff goes together. Yeah,
no, it does. And I always like to define that, because I'm like, okay, I don't want people to think, these products are going to cure your problems. They might help, but it's not gonna get to the root.
Really. And there's so many things that meditating and things that you don't have to make these big investments in somebody's products. There are things that are free or low cost or, a whole range of things.
Yeah, I talk about things that I actually use and do. But the biggest thing is that in order to really, going back to the anti-bullying campaign, to really live a fulfilling life, you really have to get to the root of what's holding you back. And so that's my focus. And then the other things like, to help improve your sleep. Like I'm obsessed. Nothing that I say is sponsored, but like I'm obsessed with these like vitamins. I don't know if you know the brand Ollie.
No, I don't know that one.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm not sponsored by them, but I would love to be. Because I take them every day, but they have these sleep gummies and it looks like a gimmick, and it's not, and it knocks me out. It puts me to sleep, and I tell everyone about it. Like I share things that really work for me because I have a hard time sleeping because I have anxiety, and it's like, okay, those things are great. But like at the end of the day, like with self-care, you really got to get to the root of the problem. And then those are coping things. So I'm glad we touched on that. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Sydney, thank you so much for being on my show and being so honest and candid about your story and your journey and really everything, the good, bad, and the ugly about making big changes like this and moving through fear, and really all the great growth and the great benefits that we can see from getting ourselves unstuck and doing things that scare us and taking care of ourselves and having a positive mindset. So I really appreciate you being on the show today.
I so appreciate you, Carolyn. Thank you so much. I love the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. I think it's incredible. I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm just grateful for this opportunity again that we connected, and this has been a lot of fun, and thank you again.
Thanks for listening to Beyond 6 Seconds. Please help us spread the word about this podcast. Share it with a friend, give us a shout out on your social media, or write a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. You can find all of our episodes on our website and sign up for our free newsletter at www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.